tell us a little bit something about you playing the class. Like, what do you enjoy doing? What do you want to achieve? That kind of stuff.
I really like bossing. And oh, wait 1 minute.
Oh. All right, good session. He loves bossing.
Oh, sorry, it was my baby. I'm not the holder.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I'll give you the 2-for-1 discount.
So I love bossing, and
Uh-huh.
every time I'm at a point where right now, like, I just figured out I can solo Pano, and that's really interesting for me. And maybe it's because I got a lot of IED because of my emblem, but I believe, you know. And then I tried to do 3 doors, but I'm just horrible at dodging, so I die all the time.
Okay. Wait, so what was the hardest one you killed?
The hardest one I've killed so far was probably, to me, Czak, because those hands are really hard to dodge.
Yeah, it's annoying, yeah. And even when you do dodge them, you sometimes still get hit, so...
Yeah. Like, I try to jump over them. Like, I saw there's like a thing you can... If you jump over the hand, you can still stay alive.
Oh, like up jump?
Yeah, up jump. And then I doubled up, and then I just stand there.
You float.
Usually the hands don't hit me, but sometimes they get...
Do you sometimes like land in the next one if it's in the same spot? Yeah. And then your ether guard is like could save you 1 time, but then it's on cooldown.
Oh, yeah, ether guard. Me and correct timings, they don't work out, man.
Well, you don't really have to time it as well anymore, right? Because of the change.
Really? I didn't know. I'm still under the assumption that maybe I didn't read the patch notes.
Yeah, so now if you
use that arc and I just fail.
The arc? You mean the shield?
Like, no, at Arkham, that little old wizard boss. He could one-shot you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness! I try to use the Aether Guard every time. I got yeeted.
Yeah, because I think he does more than 100% damage. He does like 200%. I mean, you have to... Damage reduction usually isn't enough for that one. You have to be completely immune, yeah, so then you have to time it properly. So the Ether Guard changed now to the first hit always making you fully hit immune, but that's it. Like, it's only 1 hit. But it is a guaranteed hit immune now. Oh,
so it doesn't... After you guard, you block 1 attack, you're immune for a few seconds?
Yeah, that part is gone, yeah. So it's now it's like guaranteed the first hit, but no chance of the 3-second invincibility or something if you time it properly. Which means it's more reliable if you need to survive like 1 map ticks, like for Arcarium, for example. But it's less good if you're doing something like using it to guard and CPAP and then jump around through the rifts and through the clocks touching and everything, and then you immune all of that stuff. That's not gonna happen. Like, you're still gonna take damage. But if you hold down Ether Guard, it's still reduced incoming damage. So if it's, as long as it's not too much damage, you might be able to outpot some things as well. So depending on the boss, like for Czak, you could use it. And are you aware of the iframe on the startup of Infinity Blade as well?
No, I was not aware of that.
So if you pop it at the right time, you're immune for like about a second. So you can also use that. And for other bosses like Arc, I would also advise to just use your bind and then burst them down, especially at the position of strength that you're in.
Do that.
Yeah.
I figured out I was strong enough to just actually bind and kill.
Yeah, maybe like 20 levels ago you weren't, right? So you kind of just...
Yeah.
Back then, the Ether Guard was different, so you were using it differently. That makes sense. But as you get stronger, your tactics of how you approach certain bosses will also change. I mean, typically what I do is I wait for him to do an attack, then I hit him like once or twice in that attack, and then hit bind, and then finish him off with like... You could throw like a rune on him, and it's probably just melts, right?
Yeah, I honestly now it's just easy. I think it's more of like I underestimate my own damage, and I don't believe I can do things. Like Pano, I never believed I could do it, but I've been at this kind of damage for a while.
The first time, you probably can't do it. I mean, that's probably a realistic way of looking at it. But the best way to look at it is that you can improve, right? You can improve by practicing more and trying it more times.
Yeah.
Because even with CRA, even if you have the damage, and maybe even if you easily have the damage, that's still no guarantee that the first time you ever do CRA on a character, you're just going to waltz in and just kill it. Because there's so many unknowns, right? There's so many mechanics you've never had to engage with before. It'd be very unrealistic, even if you saw someone do it in a video, because it'll, like, you can watch my Adele do it, and I'll make it look so easy, because like, oh wow, he does it at like level 205 or whatever. It's like, oh, well, why can't I do it yet? But I've already killed that boss like 600 times at that point, so I know everything that boss can possibly do and how to avoid it. The only thing I have to learn is where are my hitboxes exactly for my character, and I can, you know, I can switch between characters very quickly because I have all of the base knowledge of the boss. If you don't have that, and you have to learn the other stuff at the same time, it's just a slower process for the first time around. My first time doing it on my first character was also horrible. That took forever to do, except for Queen, of course, because I was on my DA.
Yeah.
So you kind of just ignore all the mechanics.
I think Queen is, like, for me, I wouldn't say Queen was hard, because I can solo Queen, which is so easy.
She's always hittable,
like,
right? I mean, except for the damage reflect one, she's always hittable, so you can continuously stream damage on her. The other bosses, it's harder. Von Bon is gone a lot. You have the other little dimension thing. You have to look out for the clocks for the timer. Pierre, like the split can be a nightmare, so you have to... and then being sealed and getting hit by the hats. And then Vellum, of course, has a lot of tails and everything going on, so that makes it way more complex, I would say. Queen is more straightforward. Especially if you have high HP, then you're pretty good because the fire doesn't really do much to you either. The one thing would be the mirror, but I think if you hold your ruin for the mirror, that's always an easy clear, right?
Yeah.
Like over a Reign of Destruction, maybe ruin, yeah.
It's just Clown. Every time I know to bind when he's like at a certain HP, I think, and then you just burst.
Well, you think that's important, right? That part is very important. Where...
And then I'm like, and every time I do that, he gets out of his bind like 5% HP and then splits. I'm like, oh gosh.
That's not the end of the world, right? If that happens, the best thing to do is look at the top right to see which effects are still going on and just take those off, because otherwise they will heal one of them up, right? Like let's say that you have Infinity Blade still on or something.
Yeah, take those off.
Yeah, right-click that immediately, because you want to keep them at even HP. That's honestly not bad, because what you can do is just let them kill you, and then respawn, and then you won't have a hat, and then you can finish them both off. So like, you just want to like either let them kill you immediately, right, and then just look for the buffs and right-click them, or right-click the important buffs, wait for your cooldowns to come back, and then just let them kill you. Make sure that they stack in the middle. And then just throw down a ruin or something, or maybe your bind when it's back, and then you can kill them quickly together, especially if their HP bar is that low. The worst thing...
I honestly just leave every time it splits. I'm like, oh no.
You can also do that. Yeah. But with, I mean, for the cost of one buff freezer and half hour of your life, that could be worth it. But if you're that close, I think with some optimization through the session, you should be able to do it, like... pretty easily. So what is like your sequence of skills that you use when you're like, okay, you have a red hat and he's a blue hat and he's like at the spot where he's going to split soon? What do you do?
So usually I would have 3 of my Aether swords out already, or hunting degrees, and then I'd click my Grave Proclamation, I think it's called. And then I do Divine Wrath to Noble, so I summon my swords to me.
Noble summons, and then
I do Bind. I do Bind, Region of Destruction. I do my Rune, and then I click 4, and then I just Shardbreaker, and I cleave. I cleave until no tomorrow, and then at the point where actually right when I before I bloom, I hit Legendary Restoration, so I can get the extra little sword, those extra 2 swords. Yeah. And then after I bloom, I immediately storm, and then I do the full combo, and then I just start cleaving. So everything's on cooldown at the very moment, but I always forget to, like, impale. I always forget my 2 stacks before I start my combo. Yeah. That's the thing I always forget to do.
So I think the order that I would do it in is I would throw down, like, if you see it, I throw down Reign of Destruction and Rune immediately. And then Legacy Restoration, pop your 8th sword, and then summons Bloom on top of him. And then pop like Storm and Infinity Blade, and then resummon your swords and cleave. That's probably what I would do. Okay. Because you want that Rune, like, you want that in there instantly. And also, if it doesn't, work out, right? That's the skill that you want to be able to use the second time to finish them off. So you want that to come back on off cooldown the fastest as well. And that's like the biggest. So it's different, right? So if you're blue and if you're red and he's blue, right? Because then he's gonna get hit. If you're red and if you're blue and he's red, then you don't want to use ruin first. You only want to use ruin after you've bound him. So then I probably wait for him. I prep like the ones that are always gonna hit. So I use Legacy Restoration, Extra Sword, and then Infinity Blade. And then if he teleports, you know he's going to teleport to where you're standing, right? So you jump a little bit away, and then you put the Rain of Destruction down there, and then you wait like 1 second or something right before he shows up. Then you put down Rune, and then as soon as you see him, bind him in that Storm, and then resummon your swords and cleave, like that.
Okay. That's the one thing. It's like I've never properly looked for a combo, so it's like I'm just YOLOing everything.
Yeah, I think it's important to put the things that are going to do a little bit of damage over time to plop those down first if you know they're going to hit. So on the blue one, you know he's going to spin through them. So plop that down first while you have a little bit of distance. And then as he gets closer to you, then you bind him. He stays in those hits. And then you can just summon and bloom because he'll be like right in front of you. But you want to make sure that you bind him, of course, before he touches you because then he can seal you. And then if you're sealed for a bit, that takes away a lot of your damage. And if you're cornered, what you could do at that point is use Infinity Blade to jump through him, and then you'll be immune just for the jump, and then bind him as you get to the other side. For example, if you're cornered or something.
Okay.
That could help. But yeah, really be using those iframes, and you also have a slight immunity at the end of Infinity Blade, but that one's a bit harder to pull off because usually it lags a little bit at the end. I don't know if you have that as well.
Sometimes, usually no.
Mm-hmm.
When I've logged in too long, most definitely.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll get into all the details, but like as long as that order kind of makes sense to you, right?
Yeah.
Then if we optimize everything else, I'm sure you'll find that you're going to be outputting way more damage, and that or way more. You know, I'm not assuming that you have everything set up wrong, but I've already seen a few things where I think we can definitely tweak a bit. And that'll help you output way more damage, or way more, more damage, and then that combined with like a little bit of tweaking of the skill order should get you to killing those bosses in no time. Do you also use guild skills for this when you're fighting them?
Well, I have no idea what a guild skill is.
Okay. So based on your guild, if you check the guild screen, there's a guild skill tab here, and they're called like Noblesse guild skills. And depending on how much your guild does flag race and guild PQ, you'll have skill points here.
Yeah, I don't use these.
They're
the damage ones and the damage percentage ones.
Do they have anything leveled? You can see like the numbers under the skill, right, to see if they have anything leveled.
The hard hitter is 15, and for the guild is 10.
Yeah, okay. So like if you use the hard hitter, that's 30% critical damage for 30 minutes with a 1 hour cooldown. That's like huge if you're gonna do bosses. So usually what I do, if I'm like, you could, for the practicing, you can, once you get the mechanics down, if you add this is gonna be like a free win because 30% critical damage is insane. And then the other one is 20% damage, right? So it's going to be important, though, that if you have these on, that you also have like a few buff freezers on you in case you die, that you don't lose them, because then the cooldown is very long, of course, so that would be a little bit annoying. But if you're going to do multiple bosses in a row, and you're kind of, you want to speed up the whole process of doing weekly bosses and that kind of stuff, this is going to make you a lot stronger as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that until now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, to commit that damage, we do want to make sure that we get you as close as possible to 100% crit rate, though, right? Otherwise, the critical damage isn't good.
I was 100% crit rate, right? And because I had a 12% crit on my Pinot, and then I re-rolled it because I wanted 2 attack lines. I just wanted to get off the crit. And I was gonna pump out some Legion levels, and hopefully I would have got the 10% by now, but I have kids, so
yeah, you can't do that as easily.
I couldn't push it.
Yeah, I see.
But so that 10%, I was gonna like re-roll my hyper stats, so I can take. I only have 4 in crit rate right now, and then I was gonna put it back to 10, take it off strength, or like take it off IED usually because I'm pretty high on IED.
Your current situation, yeah.
Yeah, and then I would have probably been closer to 100. I wouldn't be able to get to 100.
This is with sharp eyes on, right?
Sharp eyes would be 90%, yeah.
And is it also with some IED? Sorry, with some crit rate from the Buckcat Kapoo thing?
I never participated in Buckcat Kapoo.
Yeah, just to make sure that we're like not comparing apples and oranges, right? Because you can get up to 15% for that. So if that's also in effect, then we'd have to, look at that number completely differently. So, but that's just good to know. Yeah, we'll look at how to get the crit and where to get it, because that's pretty important. Yeah. That shields, that might change. Depends on what you want to do. Okay, so you like, well, I guess we were still in the introduction part of it. You said you like the bossing. So those are the bosses you're working on now. Is there a specific boss you have in mind, or do you just, you just want to do the next one?
The boss I have in mind is... I forgot what it was. I want to do Lotus by myself. That's the thing. That's what I was going to go for. Lotus and Hard Mag. Hard Mag, I just get yeeted. I don't know, maybe I'm just bad at dodging, honestly.
Well, I think you have...
I still can't even do normal.
It's...
I think I just don't know the mechanics well enough, and I just die every time.
And which parts? Well, yeah, okay. So like the next step, kind of well, it's all clock. Sometimes I'm in the clock phase, and it's like, well, shit, they're all clock phases actually. Yeah. So you kind of have like 3 door, right? Then Vellum, then I would say then HMAG, then CPAP, and then like Akechi. Well, Akechi probably before CPAP. And then you would have Lotus and Damien, I would say, like roughly that order. And then around Lotus and Damien is also when you're thinking about like doing Helix and stuff. So that's kind of like the general move in order of difficulty, but also I think it's a good way to be like, okay, I can do this one now, I can move to the next one kind of thing. Because they're also just increasing level of complexity, but also, increasing level of needing damage and stuff. But I see you already have some Abzo stuff, so that should help your progress towards that whole... those are already the equips you're supposed to get from defeating Lotus, right? So that'll give you an edge on fighting him. Of course, if everything is upgraded properly and the stats are all set. Okay, so should we focus on that? Just being able to solo Lotus like that as the current end goal?
Yeah, current end goal would say Lotus.
Okay, because if you can solo
like
Lotus,
priority. Do I prioritize my Adele to get to like a certain level, then worry about Legion? Or am I worried about Legion now, letting my Adele just sit there? Because like she's been 220s for a while now, just because I've been trying to pump out Legion. I was at like 700 not too long ago, and I just pumped out until now.
I see.
And now I feel like I'm neglecting my true love.
Your true love? Oh, it's being...
My wife, that's what I mean. No, I'm neglecting my Adele.
Yeah.
But then again, I feel like I won't be able to do much. Like especially in the new area that I just unlocked, which is Arcana. Like Earth Spirits, they're getting easier, but they're not super easy. They're not like one-hittable, which is like relatively bad for me. Yeah. But maybe
we'll get into the details on why that all is and what we can do in like short term, midterm, long term to get you boosted. Because that's one thing also, right? Like you want to do the bosses, but if you don't get the levels to even access all of the V Matrix slots and get all the hyper stats and all of the stuff around it, then those bosses are going to be significantly harder as well. Like I've cleared at lower levels like Lotus and Damien, but that's like getting hard carried by max guild skills, and that's knowing the mechanics of the bosses inside and out as well, and then barely making it. So I mean, it's not like you're lagging horribly behind or anything like that. I don't know if you're worried about that at all, but I to say that you should be
No,
or anything.
I think it just feel like I came from Bear and it was like really fast to get like levels and numbers with my damage and everything, even with my Kana, and it was just like I came to Reboot and everything's kind of slow, and I like it better because like I don't gotta pay money for cubing, which is really awesome.
That's a huge difference, especially when you have kids, because those are expensive enough.
Yeah, very. So that's the one thing I like, but it's just the things where it's like I can't. I'm doing normal Lux, like, and then maybe you get Helix carries here and there, you know, if I'm on at the appropriate time. But like, just getting those is horrible enough. Like, at least I have a friend that like does Helix carries for me and lets me get the sup drops. But other than that, it's just like he rarely gets on when I'm on.
Yeah, so you want to be more self-sufficient there.
Yeah, that's why. That's just more self-sufficiency. Like now that I can do these like daily bosses, it's pretty good without having to like keep dying over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like free 8 mil crystals here or there. Like, I don't know. I think it's for me. I'm hitting a point where I can start being self-efficient.
Yeah, I think it'll be a big jump. I think once you can do like CRA at least 3-door, but also like with Vellum, because that's another 200 mil you get. So I guess like with the basics, since we kind of have the picture clear. So how familiar are you with my commands, and if so, which ones have you seen before? Do you have any questions on those before we like kind of refer to those? Because I'm gonna be pulling those up a lot.
Honestly, like when we were talking, I just saw someone do exclamation cubing, and this is a cubing order, and I've been like Google searching that, and I didn't even know you have one. So I only know Links and Legions, and that's what I've been going through. Literally from the top down, that's literally my life.
Okay. Yeah, so cubing is one. Of course, it goes into balance with a lot of other stuff. So all of it kind of refers to this one, the progression grid, which is basically the outline for like all of my sessions. This is kind of what I use to benchmark where you're at in the game. And I've developed this to kind of give better insight on where is spending your time going to be the most efficient. Now, efficiency is of course not the be-all end-all. Fun should definitely factor into this. So if something is not very fun to you, but something else is, you can always compensate with a little bit more of something else. But then you have some kind of goal, at least some kind of benchmark that you can check for. Am I completely off the beaten path, or am I going in the right direction? Something like that. So if we're looking for you, you'd be like in the middle of mid-game here, basically, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit, you know, it's not an exact science. So like stat-wise, probably want you to be at like, I'd probably say like going towards, probably like towards 15 to 16k or something. So you're probably a little bit lower on that regard, because the potentials are mostly epic and the Star Force is not very high, right? Mostly up to like 12.
Yeah. I'm trying to save money right now for I have the No Boom room, so that's what I'm saving money for.
Right, for this Sunday, which is tomorrow, right? Yeah.
The 5, 10, 15 event came out, like I was new, so I didn't really have the funds. I did get some things to 16, some things at 15 because I didn't have enough money to do 16. But other than that, like kind of, I did get some, not enough.
Yeah, it's a little counterintuitive because honestly, 5, 10, 15 is mostly good if you're trying to get past 15. That's when it earns you the most money, and that's where it's most efficient. Yeah. The other events are good to get to 15. So if the orders come in, if the order of the events is kind of like backwards for you for your stage in the game, it feels shitty. But like the most efficient way would be to like hold and to do the next event first, get it all to 15 with that extra money, and then sit on 15 for a while, and then the next 5, 10, 15 go hard on that. Of course, depending on how much money you make and how much patience you have and everything, you can brute force through it. But considering your situation and your family life and everything, you seem pretty busy, so it seems like it would be a good idea to not want to run there before you can walk and try to kind of stick to those events, because that'll help you in the long run to, to get more value out of the money that you do make. Yeah, so we'll keep like all of the numbers here kind of in mind. I have
Yeah.
these like in my head. You can look at like you can click the link if you want as well with the progression. The reboot game stage is that one, to kind of like check back to it every now and then. And the other one is the dailies, weeklies. This one kind of keeps track of like which things are useful to get from which content in the game, and then also by which level do I think is it worth your time doing these. And this is again linked to the progression grid, like provided that your level, provided that you hit all these benchmarks, that means you can use your level as kind of your referral number, because it's very hard. In the past we used like damage range, that's all over the place now and is a very bad number to look at. A lot of people now use stat, which is better than range for sure, but is still somewhat all over the place, because someone with the same stat as you could be doing 5 times your damage if they have like, it's their third character and they have like maxed out boost nodes, right? Like they could do way more damage than you. And different classes as well, it doesn't really translate as well. So the lower the stat is, the least the lower the predictability of the stat is to how strong you're going to be. So that's why I use so many benchmarks. It kind of sucks because it makes it more complicated. But as long as you keep track of these benchmarks and you're like within range of these, you can use your level as your indicator. And then in the dailies grid, you can use your level and inject it there and kind of see like, okay, which dailies are worth my time at this point. And it's kind of a tricky part, but I guess I'll ask you, when it comes to having a limited time in the day and feeling like you're already kind of neglecting the Adele, but you're doing all those daily bosses, right, for like the 7-8 mil crystals.
Yeah, I'm doing the daily bosses for those and my Maple tour.
And Ursus as well, of course, because we saw you there. Would there also be an opportunity, instead of doing the daily bosses, for you to just train a little bit?
Yeah, I usually train from like midnight to like maybe 4 or 5 in the morning.
Because sometimes when we try to min-max, we actually do the opposite. The reason I mean is that one of the systems in the game is like you can sell 60 crystals per week to the guy, right? And that gives you money. Yeah. And it's very easy to think like, oh my god, this is like free money, I should be doing this every day. But saying that just takes you like 15, or like saying that it takes you 10 minutes a day or something, right? And you do it every day, that means that every week there's an hour that you could be training instead. But what if during the hour you make almost the same amount of money, but you also make a whole bunch of experience in that same hour, right? But then again, the factor, of course, of flexibility of the time. Do you have one chunk of time of an hour available during the week instead? Or do you have 50 minutes in a separate, right? That can be, depending on your schedule and everything, that cannot not necessarily be like a one-to-one comparison, but it could be. So it's always a good way to look at content, like, because everything comes with an opportunity cost, right? If you're doing one thing, you can't do another thing at the same time. So something never has like a certain value. It always has a certain value compared to other stuff you could be doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, with training, it's usually like I either get like a free totem or I buy a totem, and then I wait for like the perfect time where I can do a full totem.
Everyone is gone, house is empty, everyone's asleep.
Yeah. It's like, it'll be like 3 in the morning. I'm like, okay, great, I can totem now. And then I'll totem rarely, like, because it takes a lot of strength to just sit there through a totem. And usually I usually mix it up with my MVPs, because I get MVPs myself. I'm addicted to boxes. And then, that's when I train usually. Like yesterday, the training, I got 1.5 levels. I'm 27 now.
Nice. But
what it would really help me is like, I don't know if I should be prioritizing damage or going for straight meso gear, so I could just on my Adele, so I can just start making more mesos.
Yep.
Or am I just waiting for event rings? Or
yeah, those event rings should be coming in live, right? Yeah, that can be a bit. Well, the thing with the rings is that it's not too bad, because all of the rings kind of maintain the same value, whether they're event rings, whether they're like Gollux rings even, or just any other ring that can get up to 17 stars, you know, things like Reinforced or Kind of Treasure, all of those. They all kind of give the same stat around there. So basically whatever potential they roll into, that's what determines where you're going to use them, whether they're becoming like a drop rate ring or a damage ring or whatever. The only ring where it's really important, of course, is the superior ring, if you are getting to the full set, of course, because that set bonus is insane. So that one, you ideally want that one to become a damage ring. But even in the early point, that can also be a ring with like a line of drop or mezzo and one line of stat, and that can be good enough. You know, so sometimes we'll get through like the details with everything, but because Akana has such solid base stats, as long as everything else is kind of in place and your Legion and your, you know, Lynx is not completely non-existent, you can get away with just having decent WSE and have like, you know, just drop a mezzo on the accessories and be fine for a very, very long time and still be able to boss like that. But it'll come down to like a little bit more min-maxing and optimizing on all the other stats that you've earned in the game, right? Like your hyper stats and the correct links and Legion and all of that stuff. So we'll get into the priorities for all of that to make sure that it makes sense. But like the concept of the progression and the dailies and weeklies, that all makes sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense.
And if you're doing Monster Park, do you do them just for the clears or do you do them for EXP right now because of the current event?
I do it for EXP on my 120s.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought you could also do it on your main, right? Because the, like the Choo Choo one or something with, because there's a buff right now that gives double EXP, right? To Monster Park.
Yeah, Monster Park. Yeah, that's why I use it for.
You use it for low levels, okay.
Yeah, because it's like 2 levels every time.
Yeah, it's really good. And you buy the extra coupons for mezzos?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay.
For now, for the little Legion people, I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't done it my main in a while.
Yeah.
I was doing it every day before the event.
I see. Yeah, well, yeah, and I guess to circle back to your question, right, of like, do you spend more time on your main or more time on your Legion? That kind of like bears out as well in the progression grid, right? Because it also has Legion level as one of the things there, because it is a kind of like a time management tool mostly, and you know that takes a lot of time as well. Like, where is it more important to throw time into your Legion versus into your main? And I think it's always a matter of balance. I would always do a little bit of both. Of course, you know, that doesn't mean that you have to do both of them every single day, but as long as you make slow and steady progress towards your Legion, it'll grow very, very well. In the beginning, you could just make a whole Legion, I guess, of level 60s and 70s that are very, very weak by itself, but every level is gonna count all the way up until you have 40 characters. So even if you just make 40 characters that are level 70, you're already at 2.8k. And for most characters, it's very little to no effort. And then slowly, of course, from there, you can be like, okay, these are more important. I'm going to get these to 100. And then maybe kill Zakum every day. Maybe do some Monster Park runs to slowly get them up to 140. But other than that, like, no real time spent there. And if you do that with the most important characters, as long as you slowly keep building how many characters you have in your Legion, 6k Legion happens. Like, it just happens because of, and you don't have to throw a whole bunch of money in there, because all you need is just a bunch of 140s. And from 100 to 140 is just a bunch of Monster Park and Zakum. And before that, yeah, up to 100 you have to grind it out. But for most characters, that's relatively simple. And especially the more characters you make, as long as you make them in that order, right, from the grid, every new character is going to be way stronger because of all the crit rate, all the crit damage, and all the flat damage buffs. Once those start coming in, every new character is going to be way stronger. So getting up to 100 is going to be a breeze. That's not to say like it's going to be like 30 minutes, but it might be like 2 days or something, you know, depending on how you are. But as long as you slowly keep progressing with that, you'll see a lot of results. Like in 1 month, 2 months, you'll see a huge result for your Legion.
Is it weird? I just feel obligated when I make the new character. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna get to 120 before I start another one.
You can, I mean, you could do what you want with that. I usually just went to 100, kill Zakum, and then log off, and then go like kill 4 more Zakums for the other characters that are not 140 yet, and then fuck off and go to my main. That's usually how I did it back in the day, because it's just so high, such high efficiency for the little time you spend for just going in killing Zakum arms. It's so much EXP, and if you have enough characters that you can do that on, it's basically like you have one character that's constantly grinding Zakum, right? It's essentially how I see it.
Yeah.
Because you have limited access per character, but you don't have limited access per account. Like, you could do up to 50 per day, you know?
Yeah. I think it for me is like... I like usually most of my things are like 120, and like Zakum gives at 120 without any. I think I just don't put any. Maybe because I don't put any like EXP buffs on him, and you just get like no EXP barely.
Are you? Yeah. So the one thing is, are you killing Zakum very quickly? Because in the beginning, the arms cannot be hit. And if you kill Zakum too quickly, if you kill him before the arms can get hit, you only get the experience for the body and not for the arms. And that's actually where most of the EXP is.
I just yeah, I'm probably doing it too fast because I just like hold my button.
Yeah, you want him to like spawn and like count like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, like and then start hitting, because the arms are like 85 to 90% of the EXP, and then the body is like the last 10%. But if you kill the body, the arms just kind of like, they look like they die, but they just disappear, and you don't get any of the EXP for that. So that could be what's happening. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's not like you're gonna get like 2 levels per run at level 121, but it's definitely a lot of EXP for very little time invested, and that's the main thing we're looking for, because I mean, we're not falling in love with all of our Legion characters, right? This is just mass production. We're just trying to churn out levels to fund the whole operation. And there will be characters every now and then that you actually do like, and then, you know, you can do what you want. You can, like, invest a little bit more money. You can start, like, bonking, maybe get them up to 200 with some events or something. But, you know, that's, like, a totally up to you thing. But once you're just churning out levels, that's, like, the approach that I use to it, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start just pumping out level 60s. I think the horriblest part about that is going through all these storylines.
Some of, horrible storylines, But it is also something you could turn your brain off. So, like, if you have your baby on your lap, like, you don't need to learn mechanics and everything. You just hold down the space bar and just, you know, rock your baby. You don't really need to, like, expend any brain power to that. And then you look up every now and then, see if you're stuck somewhere, and then walk around a little bit. Some of them are lengthy, I think it's a minority, though. I would say it's only like 5 or 6 or so of them that are like quite lengthy. Most of the other ones is just like, would you like to skip the cutscenes? Yes. And just keep going. Because, you have like 25 more characters you can add now, right? So if, even if that's all just level 60s, that's 1500 Legion right there. So you're at 3.7 with that. You get a few 100s in that, then you're already at 4K. And 4K is even once you hit 3K. 3K is a huge change, because, you know, you get the next grid position available, and you get to put 5 extra characters in versus now. So that gives you a whole lot of extra buffs. And, you know, with every extra grid space, it's also more efficient, right? Because you're going outwards, so you get the diagonal, so you're getting an extra grid on the outsides compared to before for every level.
Yeah.
And then you slowly start like divesting from the middle, from like the attack and the strength, and you go more and more into crit rate and crit damage, and it's also going to help you settle like your crit rate problem and not having to go too high on hyper stats. You can divide it more over other stats that are more necessary. Because one thing I saw is your boss damage is pretty low, and if you do like bossing, you're going to get comparatively huge advantage from adding boss damage into sources right now. You should, you know, when you're mobbing, you won't see any difference, of course, but when you're bossing, you should see, well, probably won't see a huge difference, but you'll notice that the boss just dies way faster, and you have to do fewer bursts before boss HP is a lot lower. Yeah,
that's one thing about Legion I'm liking, is like I can unlock more crit damage, and then the crit, because I'm struggling trying to get that 100% without like potential. When I had a potential, it was easy. Now that I don't, it's like, okay.
Yeah, and it's fine in the beginning, but you don't want to have to rely on that later, right? You want that to go into other, because again, the opportunity cost there for the crit is very high, because you can get percentage attack there. Where else can you get so much percentage attack comparatively? Nowhere, right? So you're sacrificing a lot of damage.
Again, when I moved out of the crit from my Pinot and I went 12% attack, I literally pumped up like a 3.5k damage, somewhere around there. I was like, okay. Yeah,
you'll notice it for sure. Okay, so so that's kind of like how for like building Legion and the importance there. Do you have any? Well, you know about the grid, right? So do you have any questions regarding Legion and the grid and maybe building and the order of characters?
All I know about Legion is people make a straight line, and then from that straight line, they put everything in crit damage and ID and boss damage if they have enough.
Yeah.
Or they could just do ID and boss damage. I don't know. That's why I know. I knew there's a straight line and 2 big bulks.
Yeah, so I would say the priority for what you fill is pretty much the exact same. There's like one difference with like buff duration with other characters, but it's pretty much the exact same as with your hyperstats. So like strength and attack are cool, but those are like what you fill up later when you have leftovers, right? Same thing with like with hyperstats. Critical rate is the most critical rate is most important because it makes sure that you can hit crits, and critical damage needs to come in after you have enough crit, and that's the basis of your damage in both mobbing and bossing. So if you need critical rate, you get it in the hyperstats, you get it in the Legion. You kind of bring that up evenly, right? You don't want to fill out like the whole Legion block of crit and then have none of your hyperstats, and you also don't want to be like level 12 hyperstats and have nothing in your Legion. Both of those are probably inefficient situations. You probably want to roughly bring those up evenly, right? Because hyperstats has a progressive cost, right? The higher level you go, but your Legion board has a 1-to-1 cost. But of course, you have the opportunity cost of if you put it in your crit, you can't put it anywhere else. And then the second most important is probably crit damage. Because for both mobbing and bossing that helps, with the exception of characters that have very low IED. For them, IED might be a higher priority. Because again, like you can build a lot of damage, but if your damage doesn't go through the defense of the boss, then it doesn't matter. Because you're going to lose out on too much damage. In your situation, definitely be critical damage, right? Because of how much IED you have right now.
Yeah.
And then after that, it would be either IED or boss damage, again, depending on what your balance is between your accounts. If you look at your IED and your boss damage, it would definitely be boss damage in your situation. But let's say you redid your emblem and you got a whole bunch of attack on there, then you would move the boss probably into the IED temporarily until you get more IED from better links, maybe from the if your Superior Golic set completes or something like that, and then it might shift back to boss damage. That all just depends on, at that point you have to just do a calculation of like how much of your damage is being lost to the defense versus how much of your damage you win with adding boss damage, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But like the general order is like very similar to your hyperstats, right? That sounds familiar, like how you
definitely.
look at those.
That's how when I had my hyperstats right now was because of when I had the emblem the Pinot weapon with my 12% crit, so I was like I was hitting that 100%.
Yeah.
And then I put all my hyperstats based on that, and then I switched off to 12%, and then I was like, oh.
Yeah, hyperstats is one of those things that kind of like grows around something, and then sometimes you just keep adding because you're slowly leveling, and then it's good to every now and then to kind of look at, okay, we have to reassess what do I need in this point and just redo them. I mean, that's why they have a reset in the first place, right? Because that does happen quite often. Okay, but does that make the Legion clear enough, or do you have any extra questions?
Yeah, Legion's clear enough. I'm just gonna do what you said. Pump out
it's just a grind. That's just But yeah, power in numbers, like because getting 10 levels on a level 50 is way easier than getting 10 levels on a level 200. That's just always how you want to look at it. And all the way until you're at 40 characters, that's just the lay of the land. Once you get to 40 characters, then you can start looking more like, okay, I like this character, or I don't like this character at all. I'm going to set this one aside and just burn it or terror burn it whenever that comes around, if they're important. If they're not important at all, I'll just leave them to the wayside, because 6k is very, very, very solid for a Legion. Like, you can do a lot with 6k, especially with a class like Adele, because you won't need that much crit rate. You can fill out critical damage, and then you can put a little bit in IED if it's necessary, full out crit damage, right? You can probably fill all of that with 6k, so for Adele, that'll be a fine situation to be in. Some other classes want that 8k to fully utilize their class, but you're not in that situation, so 6k is very manageable. But even though it seems super far away now, once you start churning out those level 60s, you'll see in like even if you make one every 2 days, that means like a month from like 2 months from now or something, you'll already be at 4k. There's gonna be a huge difference. So slow and steady. Okay, so we're keeping all of the moving parts in mind, right? Like all of the crit and stuff. We kind of explained that balance. So I guess since we talked about the hyperstats, so the main thing for hyperstats that I would do right now is probably what you said, like take the points out of strength and a little bit out of IED, not too much, but put like enough in crit rate to get you to 100%. I think that if you put I think if you put it to 9, I think you're at like 99%, right?
Really?
Yeah, because past 5 is 2% per.
Oh, past 5 it's 2. Okay, I thought it was just 1 each.
Oh no, is it past 10? Oh wait. Yeah, no. Yeah, I think past 5 it's 2% per block. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Let me check on this one, because I think this one has some in crit. Oh, this one has none in crit. All right. No, because I'm pretty sure it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, like that. What? And it goes up to,
yeah, it's 2% after 5.
So if you get it to 9, you'll be at 99%, and we could probably sneak like 1% somewhere else. That'll probably be fine, because that 9 to 10 is pretty expensive. And if the ID is a little bit lower, that means we can also level up boss damage. Do you have any points below there in like arcane power or EXP?
No, I have 0 in arcane.
Okay.
That's why I didn't include it, because I felt like...
Yeah, just making sure. Because we want to level the boss damage as well a little bit, because right now you have 86%. So even just a small increase there in boss damage will... Well, I mean, it's a damage bonus plus boss damage that matters, of course, just for completion's sake.
I feel like I have 0 in... Because I just reset. I have 0 in ID, right? And I still have 90.88%. Plus with my Aether Guards, I think it was called. Resonant Rush, right? If I do
Resonance Rush, and you have your Grave Proclamation.
I boosted to like what 92%. I think that should be good even for now at least.
Yeah, you can put like I mean like the first 5 levels are basically free, so you always want to put at least a level 5. Right, like the further you go, like 5 levels is just peanuts, right? But the first 5 levels, even on IED, is already going to be significant. Probably put you at like almost 92, right? Or over 92?
Yeah, I have like 92.25.
Yeah, and you don't even have ID familiars yet, probably, right?
Oh, I'm so... When it comes to familiars, I'm just confused about them, honestly.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit.
Where to get them, when to get them.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so you put the crit rate at 9?
So I put crit rate at 9, crit damage at 10, damage at 10, ID at 5. I have 168 points left.
Yeah, just dump the rest in boss damage. I think 168. It's gonna be 9 or 10 as well, right? No, it might actually be 10 and a little bit left over if I look at the other numbers.
I have 18 left over.
Yeah, it's a little bit more efficient than what you had before. 18, yeah, and then how's your arcane power? That's a little bit over 400. Yeah, because you might be, because you know the hierarchy for like increasing damage is like increasing final damage is the most important, but there's a bunch of things that increase final damage, right? One thing is like arcane power, the other one is like boost nodes, the other one is just having things that give you final damage in your kit, and then the other one is level difference penalty or bonus depending on level difference between you and a thing you're hitting. Like that's all final damage. So the one thing there in hyperstats that can give final damage would be arcane power. So depending on the area you're in and how quickly your arcane power is able to grow, putting some points into arcane power so you can get to the higher level areas early on probably be a good idea at this point. And you were at 410 and we are at well, you won't be able to get to Arcana yet, right?
Arcana?
Yeah, so you're talking about like the well, I mean, train there.
Well,
like the Earth Spirits, you were.
Yeah, Earth Spirits, but it's like 2 hits. So I usually just go to the Map of Forest or Lynchy or something. I forgot what it was called. Honestly.
So and Arcana Force is 280, which means that if you get to 420, which is 10 more than you're at right now, you gain 20% final damage compared to now.
Oh, that's probably why I don't want to hit them.
So that's really close, and that's probably just worth it to just dump those leftover points just into Arcana. Especially because once you hit the next level, you're going to go to the next area. It's going to be even more distinct of a difference. So a little bit of points into arcane power is always a decent idea.
I also think it's gonna my one little arcane orb, whatever you call them. I call them orbs, but
the symbols.
It's about to symbols. That's what we call them. But it's about to increase. Doesn't that give me 10 in itself?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and also 100 strength with it. Yeah.
Okay.
But the higher level maps, even in the same area, will also have higher requirements, and the further you go, so like the bonus damage percentages is like 10%, 30%, and 50% above the requirement of the map. So the higher you go, the more points that percentage is, right? In the beginning, you need like 50. So it's like 50 and then 55, 65, and 75, right, to get the bonus. That's peanuts. But once you get to Sphera, like the spiders are 600. So like to get, so it's like 600, 660,
right, so eventually you're
780, and then 900 for the, yeah. So that little portion to get that bonus damage starts increasing by a lot. And all the arcane power you can get is important because you're going to have to do the pre-quest in those areas. Those higher level monsters are going to be like 15 levels above you. Again, final damage penalty through the roof. Not getting the arcane bonus damage. That's like a final damage cut there. But you want to do the pre-quest as soon as possible because then you can start leveling the symbol and you can get an insane increase in arcane power. And that's going to be a huge important thing. So a few points in arcane power in the beginning, especially on like a new character, is always a decent idea.
Yeah, I'll definitely put the rest in there then.
Yep.
I'm fine with that. Anastasia, can you not unplug my computer?
Well, if you suddenly drop out, then I know what happened. She pushed the wrong button.
Oh yeah. No, she just hangs out. Because when I was in Washington, I had my computer on my desk, and now that I'm in Cali, it's on the floor.
Oh, there's a big shiny button.
Yeah, she's just like, oh, LED. Let me click it.
Yeah.
My PC's all lit up, so she thinks it's some type of like game.
I see. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing is like, I think most people in my guild they're pretty active and helpful, but everyone has different opinions, and it's like it's hard to get a consensus of like what I'm actually supposed to do.
Yep.
But it's like I like to learn by myself, so that's why I barely ask for help usually.
Yeah, and just by listening and seeing what they tell other people, you can probably see like kind of the line of and I don't know if you've seen more of these sessions, of the progression sessions that I do. You can kind of get
they're like my
some
podcast.
Idea. Yeah.
That's why I got the idea to do it, because like I just sit there and listen to them, usually like when I tote them and stuff.
Yeah, okay. So the hyperstats all make sense as well?
Yeah, hyperstats are good.
Okay.
Actually,
yeah.
More efficient now. I had things on strength, so
yeah.
Like, hey man, I'm boy.
Strength is one of those you add a little bit into because you don't want to go over 10 on the others, but then when you get so high that you're like at 9 as well, it's like now it's probably time to start reconsidering where I put my points and redefine. Especially if you like bossing, because your boss damage is probably quite a bit higher now, right? Because it was at 86 here. And it's probably like
121.
121, wow. Yeah. So that's already a really big difference. And your range is probably a little bit lower because of the dropping of the strength, but that strength is a final strength. It doesn't even get multiplied by your percentages. So that's why it's like lower on the efficiency scale of adding points into it.
Yeah, a little did drop, but
yeah,
I can get it back.
Yeah, exactly. Like for mob, so I guess because we need to make sure we get through all the topics and stuff. So for familiars, I do have a guide specifically on that. You can look through it. It kind of explains the whole system, and then has some tips at the end on how to progress through it. The main thing I would say is just as you're working on Legion, you will get some familiars here and there. Just throw those all into the storage, and then just open them all up with your main character. And then the only thing you're looking for is any kind of drop rate, any kind of IED, and maybe some healing. Like that's the only thing you're looking for. Anything that doesn't give that, you just extract it. If it does give one of those, you can lock it so it doesn't get like accidentally extracted or something. And the ones you extract give you points, and you can use those points to either extend the duration of your summon gauge if you're going to go like really long for a day, but I don't know if that's the case for you.
So does it matter what familiar it is? Like, does that matter?
Yeah, so the rarity is what determines what the potential lines are. It's very much like item potential. Well, I guess not, because item potential is different per equip, never mind. But it's like rare just has like a list of potentials it can be, and normal like common just has a list of potentials it can be, and any familiar just draws from the same list as long as they're the same rarity.
Okay, yeah.
That's why it's just power numbers in the beginning. You just everything you make from your Legion, And that's why it's also good to keep working on your Legion a little bit, because otherwise you might need time away from everything and then go to a lower level area with your arc to try to get familiars there, sacrificing all of your money, sacrificing all of your experience at the same time, and getting only familiars, which is...
Okay, so you can only, like, for me right now, I can only get familiars from my, like, say, like, my arc is, like, what, 160 something? I can only get them from that kind of level?
Well, yeah, so they, like, the highest they drop is, like, in future Parion, you know, like, just over level 200 there, up to, like, level, well, no, they're up to level 200, right? Like 195, 196, up to 198 or something on the golems. And then they don't drop for a long time, and then they start dropping again in Morass and in Asphera. But in Morass and Asphera, typically people don't really train in those areas very much. A little bit in Asphera and the spider maps, but and sometimes people farm in Morass, but that's mostly because there's cards dropping there, and that's a little bit of an added bonus. And only if all the other maps are full, and only if they have a vac pet, because looting there and rotating the maps there is just very less than ideal. So people like to be in Arcana for the droplets, for the nodes, possibly some symbols, but for the EXP and the gains. But then there's no cards there. So people try to, you know, either move into Labyrinth at 250, but primarily they try to move into Moonbridge at 245, because that's where cards drop and where you can also train and make really good gains. So until your Adele goes to 245, you're not going to see any cards from just training.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is very little pressure right now on familiars. Like, the only thing would be IED, because that means that your emblem and stuff can be re-rolled for damage instead of needing so much IED, and that can give you more damage overall for mobbing and bossing. Because right now you're missing a lot of mobbing damage because you have no attack percent there, right?
Yeah.
So taking that pressure off of the emblem with familiars would be very useful. But yeah, you're gonna just need to reveal a whole bunch of them. I think on average you need to reveal like 100 or so before you see one IED. So it can be a bit.
Yeah, bit lengthy. I think it's just mostly, I would re-roll off of it now, but it's just like, it just looks too, like, good, and that's why I haven't done it. Especially since, like, I went 2 lines of tech on both of these, but the meso problem is the real problem.
Yeah, yeah, and it comes from, it's all, like, connected together, of course.
Yeah, so, like, on my, if you look at my actual potentials, I tried to go, I didn't worry about my CRA gear, like, to get them up to legendary just yet. I got my gloves because I heard, well, crit damage, you can get down that, and I got lucky somehow where I got crit damage strength on it. But after that, I just did my Gulix, my superior Gulix, trying to get those legendary, and I'm stuck at, you know where I'm stuck at. But just, I think that's the correct place where I gotta be right now, but I feel like I'm more worried about, like, spending all my money on cubing, and then I'm not even worried about my flame scores. And that's, I think, where I could probably earn the most is probably by flaming, because I feel like, especially on my superior Gulix earring, that's a horrible flame. I have a horrible flame on my belt, and I just keep forgetting about those things.
Well, those are both probably items without flame advantage, so they will keep horrible flames. And we'll pull back to the progression grid to kind of check for everything, like where you're at, right? So for Legion, we already saw that you're kind of where you want to be, but you can definitely make some leeway there, because, like, if you're going towards 240, you want to be, like, towards 4K, so you want to make sure you keep steady progress there. The other main thing is, like, you want to definitely keep doing the arcane symbol dailies as much as possible, right? There's a huge amount of power there. Again, the final damage from the arcane power, and then the amount of strength, the sheer amount of strength you get from the symbols every day, even all the way up to, like, level 16 or something. These symbols are going to level very quickly for Vanishing Journey and Choo-Choo, because it's just a huge amount of symbols every day. And then the other stuff is just setting, like, a right path and slightly correcting the way that it's going now to make sure that you're going in the right direction. So for familiars, you know, if you get them, you know what to do with the familiars now, you know what you're looking for, and then based on when and how you get the 15% IED, you can use that to to then be like, okay, now I have this IED, now I have so much. By then you will have leveled more. You may have got some link skills with some IED. You can put more hyperstats in IED again. Maybe you're going back to like 94, 95. You're like, okay, now I can definitely get rid of the IED on the emblem. Right now there's a little bit of more room there. And then maybe in your Legion board, you're like, okay, I put some extra in critical rate. I get some more critical rate as well. I take some Legion board away, maybe a little bit from boss damage, maybe a little bit from critical rate, and I put those in IED instead. And then you basically lose a little bit of boss damage, a little bit of crit rate, and a little bit of IED, but you gain like a whole lot of percentage attack on the emblem, for example. And then that trade is worth it because it helps you mobbing, it helps you with bossing.
So
that's how the pieces all like move together, I guess.
What's it called? Wait, what was I about to say? I was about to say something. My kids distracted me.
Something about the link skills or arcane symbols, maybe?
It was more of my ID. Like,
yeah.
So I wait until I get a familiar to push my ID and then get rid of my emblem, or...
Yeah, because you have like a 40 and a 30 now, I think, right?
Yeah, 40-30. Yeah. Say if I black cube it here and there, and I get 2 lines attack, would it be like, oh, it's efficient just to get rid of the ID for now, and then just supplement it with my Legion when I get in like, hey, okay, pump out 4K Legion, get your ID up.
So
like, I feel like
there's a bunch of sources, right?
There's like black cube it, like just continue keeping the ID, but if I don't get 2-line attack, don't leave the ID.
Yeah, black cubes are just expensive at this stage of the game. I wouldn't do that too much. I would like work around that. So like the least movable things, I would lock those in place and try to move the more movable things around that. So with the least movable things, I think in your situation are like your potentials on your WSE. That's like comparatively very expensive. So what I would do is focus on other sources where you can get IED and where you can get the sources that will lead to you needing less IED. Get those as much as possible, focus on those, and then when you and you could do the calculations and you can add all the lines together and you could see how much you're going to be left with if you lose all the ID from your emblem, for example. And you still have a line extra on your secondary as well. That still is a good buffer. So I would get, because you want to be, even like visually as an Adele, you probably always want to be at least around 90, especially in this stage of the game. And then eventually as game goes on, you go higher. If you get rid of a 40 and a 30, when you're at like 92, that means you're going to drop to like 83 or 84 or something. So that would be significantly too low. You can still do 3-door, but like Vellum is going to be harder, H-Mag and everything up is going to be way harder. So that's not a good move at this point. So I would just reprioritize a little bit, like for Legion and Lynx, and where you put the pieces in your grid and where you put the hyperstats to kind of compensate for having so much IED here, right? What we just did with the hyperstats. And also in the grid, you're probably not going to go into IED. If anything, you're going to go into critical damage and probably into boss damage, provided you have enough critical rate. And then if you get to the point where, okay, now I've got the IED familiars, now with everything, and then when I'm buffed on bossing, I'm at like 94, or like I'm approaching 95%, now you can think of getting rid of the emblem IED, because then even if you do, you'll drop down to like 88 or something. And at that point, what you can do is you can take the extra hyperstats and you can take the extra grid stats that we put into the other stats and you can redirect them to IED to fill up that buffer to go from 88 back up to like a 91 or 92, and then your emblem is going to go full attack and the net gain is going to be immense at that point. So you'll need to hit the next threshold. Or let's say you only get one familiar and it's like a little bit touch and go, but you do hit like the superior Golok set because you get lucky with some drops. Well, that's an extra 30%. That is like a huge chunk that can help you as well. Or you get the 6K Legion and you can plop a whole 40% in the Legion grid. That can be the thing as well. Whichever comes first,
Okay, so the superior set's only at 4. I get that.
Yeah, the 30 boss and 30 IED when you hit 4 set. Yeah. Or you or you go to the Abso weapon, for example, and the Abso weapon rolls like 2 lines of attack and 1 line of IED or something, right? That can be the go ahead as well, because it's like, well, okay, you're obviously keeping that for a while. You weren't expecting IED there, but you get it. That means you don't need it somewhere else now.
So, when I rolled the Abso, weapon, does my legendary potential grade, or should I just try to cube it and not transfer the stars and all that stuff?
So you mean from your Fafnir into the Absol weapon when you get it?
Yeah, I think to Absol.
Yeah, it'll go down to epic, but I mean, ideally you wait until you have like a 5, 10, 15 event, and then if the if you do get the or you know maybe whenever you want, you can like safeguard it up to 16 or something if you do get your weapon, and transfer it into the Abzo so it becomes 15, and then just redo the potential is probably what I do, because like this weapon is good for what it is now, but it will need replacing. And the main thing is if you don't do that, you'll just left with all of that investment in the Fafnir and you're just sitting in your inventory and you can't do anything anymore with it. So you just lose more money that way.
Yeah, true.
And because we don't have trade, I would like recuperate as much as possible. Some items can get like a second life through options, mainly accessories and stuff, but weapons are really just like left behind like this. So whatever you can recover, I would recover.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, to 16 first, so you don't go down to 14, right? Because then you can start failing a whole bunch and drop again, and you know how that goes.
Yeah. I'm really, because my guilds pushed me through Damien and Lotus, so that's why I have the Apple stuff. I'm just waiting. I'm just stuck on the DWT and scraps. Scraps I got done. DWT. I don't know why. No one. Every other time I'm like, that's trade. I'll do all yours and you can do all mine. I only got like 2, so 2 for 2. People are just lazy and they're like, nah, I'm fine. I was like, oh come on, man. So
I hit those.
I usually only do my Adele, and I got these other 2 characters I can just get carried on, and no one in the guild wants to do it, so I'm just always stuck.
Yeah, it's definitely not a crowd favorite.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who like really likes doing those. I tend to maybe even like skip Abzo on some characters just because I don't want to do it at all. I'll just get to 250 without Abzo. Just
everyone's always like, oh, why would you have Abzo? You can just get Arcane. And I'm just like, really?
Just get Arcane, dude. Forehead, just get Arcane.
Yeah, just like go straight there, you know. And then the Tyrant, this Tyrant, do I ever enhance it? Like,
nah, it's too expensive and too transient to switching into the Abzo anyway. Okay. There was a time where you would, but not anymore, I would say. Okay, so let's make sure we can get through all the other pieces because we have about 20 minutes left. So do you have any questions for like when it comes to link skills and which link skills to take? Again, for this, it's also going to be roughly the same priority, right, as the link skills and as the Legion grid. You're always going to look for the same stats first, and again find like a healthy balance with the amount that you take versus the other ones as well. And the opportunity cost of the single slot is very important there.
Yeah, like right now, I have 12 link skills in total.
Yeah.
And then I just...
So no choice problem
there. Yeah, no choice problem. I'm still working on the 3 like Pathfinders, the Marksman, and the Bow. So I got the Marksman and the Bowman. I'm just working on the final one, Pathfinder, for that final link skill.
Yep.
That's where I was going to get my crit too from.
Oh yeah, you can get some extra there, yeah. Well, we found the extra crit already, nice.
Yeah, and then...
and if it's too much, you can take a little bit out of the Legion grid and then move it into boss damage or something, yeah.
And then after that, I was like, I looked at the Legions, and maybe I'm just looking at it effective, like, I don't look at it as like a bossing Legion. I mean, a bossing link, and then I just sit there and I'm like, I actually don't need any more links right now.
Yeah, it's more of a thing that where you can min-max and specifically more switch between the mobbing and the bossing situation. So like the mages will come into play for like a better bossing link, like a Demon Slayer will become very good. Resistance link will help you. Survivability in bosses, when you die you are immune longer. That'll help you quite a bit. So it's more that you can like min-max more and give yourself more utility in specific situations, but you don't like... Yeah, it's not like you have 25 slots and there's like so much blatant gains or something that you can get, right? But the main thing is also that every single new character you start, you throw your links on there, that character gets percentage-wise versus how strong it already is, gets a huge boost out of your Legion and your Lynx, and that'll just make you snowball on new characters way faster and get to 100. Level 100 super fast, and might be able, at that point you might be able to easily make 1 character a day or even 2 characters a day just because of how strong they get. Even at level 20 or something, you'll be dishing out the damage that you're used to doing at level 40 or 60 or something, just because of all of the buffs that they get.
Yeah. And at the moment, I'm more worried about Legion than I am of Lynx, except that last.
Well, they gotta move together, right? Because they're linked to the to the characters. I
think
the main
some work together, like especially like there's some that give an okay, like a good okay Link, and then a really bad Legion.
Yeah.
like Dex or just like Int. Like I'm an Adele. I don't really.
Yeah, that's why I have the grid where I put them together, because I thought it's important to look at their collective value and not just one of the two, because then you can kind of lose sight of a potentially really good buff on one side if you're only looking at the list for the other one, right? Okay, well that makes sense, I think, right? For Lynx and Legion.
Yep, it does make sense. I use your guide and it's kind of super easy to understand. 1 through 12, you know.
Yeah.
Do that.
Exactly. For the V Matrix, are you aware of like the boost node system where you need to double up?
Double up? What does that mean?
Yeah, so your every single skill can be boosted up to 60 levels. Like the lower level skills in boost nodes I'm talking about. But a boost node can only go up to 25, right? Or any node can go up to 25 and could be in a level 5 slot, so that's for a total of 30. But you can boost a skill 60 times. 60 levels in total. So when you're talking about your boost node trios, that's always like a duo of trios to an extent. You always want to have the same 3 skills 2 times, but then in different configurations.
Okay, so in my V matrix right now, I have those 2 trinodes. Get the exact same trinodes or different order?
Yeah, so the top skill needs to be different because you can't equip 2 boost nodes that have the same starting skill. So you want the same skills again, like the ones you already have, but in a different configuration, so that so this one starts with, I think, Hunting Decree and Reign of Destruction, right? So the other 2 that you get cannot start with those same 2 skills. You have to start with Cleave or with Blossom or whatever. But in total, you have 4 boost nodes, and every skill will show up twice in total. And that's gonna be a huge impact for your damage.
Oh, I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, because I think that's a really important thing. And in the beginning, you know, nodes are pretty rare anyway. And just as a reminder, if there's an event shop and you can get any nodes out of there, always prioritize that above like almost anything else you can do. Like simple dailies and get as many nodes as possible, right? Because that's the final damage I talked about, right? That's where all the final damage is coming from. So that's why you want to go super hard. And with that in mind, if you do get like a decent boost node, I would definitely get rid of Decent Advanced Blessing, like first and foremost, if you can get another boost node in there. And probably get the boost node into a higher level slot, so maybe, I don't know, maybe slot out Storm or something into like a level 0 slot and put another boost node into a Storm slot, especially prioritizing Cleave and Hunting Decree and Reign of Destruction, those 3 if you can. If you can find one like that, that would be really, really beneficial. The other one is for mobbing. I usually also don't use Legacy Restoration up until this point, and that's where I would put the 4th boost node in. For bossing, you could, depending on the level of the node. If it's like a level 2 node or something, it's probably not doing all that much for bossing, but comparatively for mobbing, it could be, because if it gets you just past the threshold to be able to one-shot, then it's very beneficial, but for bossing, it might not speed things up too much, right?
Yeah, for Legacy Restoration, I never use it for
mobbing.
Just mobbing. I just use it for bossing.
Yeah. So I think those are the 2 slots that I would, and you know, you'd move around the other skills a little bit, make sure that the boost nodes get into boosted level slots immediately, right? Because even a level 1 boost node, level 5 slot goes up to level 6, that's 12% final damage on your skill.
So I have I'm just to be very correct, which I have a tri-node that's Hunting Decree, Aether Blooming, and Magic Dispatch, which is like 3 of my important skills, but it's like a different starting node. That would be what we're talking about, is like 2 of the same tries kind of thing. That's what you're talking about?
Well, you want 4 boost nodes in total, and all 4 need to start with a different skill, right? You know, like on the bottom when you see 3 pictures, it has the top picture has to be a different one, and every single skill has to appear 2 times. And skills can't appear twice in the same boost node, so they have to be divided up. So you already have 2 that have every single skill 1 time now, right?
Yeah.
So you're just looking for 2 more in any configuration that doesn't start with the same one as the 2 that you have, and that also those 2 together have every one of the skills again 1 time each.
Okay, and you don't recommend me use my node shards to search for that try node, or?
You could
Like,
do that. Like, there wouldn't be too much wrong now with like crafting some cleave nodes. The problem is though, if you get one of them, you don't want to immediately start investing in them, because the sooner you lock in your 3rd, the harder it's going to be to find your exact 4th one, right?
Yeah.
Because there's only going to be like 6 combinations, right? Because it's going to be 3 different starts, and then everyone is going to have only 2 different combinations of the last 2. So it's going to be 6 boost node combinations out of the total of, I don't know, like a few hundred probably, that will possibly fit the bill. So I would wait until you find the 2 exact ones that match each other and match your current set of 2 that you already have, and then start investing into those, and then start crafting specifically for those to level them up quickly so they can catch up to the other ones. Because again, leveling up boost nodes, again, the higher you go, the more expensive it is per level, right? So if you can level up those levels on low boost nodes, just like with Legion, right, you can get the same amount of levels out of a lower character much easily. And that way you can increase your damage a lot more efficiently than leveling up a level 10 boost node compared to leveling a level 1. So that's going to do wonders for your damage. Of course, boost nodes just don't come like flying from the sky. Well, they kind of do, I guess, when you kill monsters, but they're not like everywhere for the picking, so that's a slower process. But I think that's also an important part of the knowledge to know moving forward.
Yeah, I understand now. It's like, I didn't know I could do that, so now it's actually really helpful.
Yeah.
Especially my damage is going to increase now. If I get a cleave one,
yep,
that extra 12% will actually do
even
it.
like a level 3 cleave and a level 5 slot, 16% final damage to your cleaves compared to now. And it's final damage, right? It's all multiplicative, so it's huge. And it's going to help you, you know, burst down Clown much more easily. It's going to help you with the extra final damage from the arcane power. It's going to help you kill the monsters way faster. Gets you to the new areas, gets you to higher EXP rates, gets you to drop the level penalty difference from the higher bosses, you know, all that stuff. And then hopefully you get to 245 faster, you can get big familiars, you get some huge stats there, and that'll help you with other stuff. So it's all, you know, all connected together that way.
Okay.
Does Matrix make more sense that way?
It does. Matrix actually makes sense. I thought it was straightforward, and it wasn't straightforward.
Yeah, like you have, wow, I have so much room, I can use all my skill nodes, but
yeah.
Some classes actually use like 6 or 7 boost nodes or something, so then you really have to look at, okay, which skill nodes are absolutely paramount and which ones I can move around for a boost node. And also, if a boost node is a low level and I don't have a leveled up slot, is it even worth using a boost node over using a whole new skill that gives me some clear, right? And that's why it's good to have a flexible matrix like this, and it's not like first, second, third, and fourth job, but you can really switch things out for the specific situation, for bossing, for mobbing. Just like later with hyperstats, you'll probably start doing that, and with your Legion board, you'll start doing that when you're specifically trying to boss in a specific boss, or you're trying to mob in an area where you just need a certain amount of damage. That's when you want those presets, and that's when you start moving things around to get the efficiency out of the account, all of the effort you've already put in there, right?
Yeah. And what am I prioritizing? Like say I craft nodes, and which am I prioritizing to enhance?
Yeah, you can make node stones with your shard actually. For Adele, that's a pretty good idea. That's very efficient early on, because you don't have too many like junk boost nodes that come out, so your efficiency per node stone craft is actually very high.
So when got my 4 tri nodes, I'm just enhancing cleave, because that's where I probably get my most damage from mobbing from. Or am I going on the boss side with like blooming? Or...
Yeah, anything that has cleave on it's probably a good priority. Again, because it's mobbing and bossing, right? Yeah, and it's just very good static damage. But eventually you want to level them up evenly, because you don't want to have like a level 20 boost node and then have a level 6. Just like you don't want to have like a level 0 hyperstat and a level 14 probably. You know, from the relevant ones, of course. You know, you don't want to have irrelevant boost, hyperstat and level it up just because it's so lonely at 0. But
Okay.
yeah, in the same way,
'Cause
just
I
for
think
the efficiency.
They're definitely not the same right now.
But yeah, that's
Okay,
going to
and
give you a good amount of final damage, so I think that's a good thing to know.
I know about the cubing thing in order now.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got our last 10
my
minutes.
hyper passive skills. So I would take a thing out of Aether Guard, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Yeah, what I have it in the duration for Reign of Destruction. I think that's the meta right now.
Yeah, I was gonna do that too.
For mobbing, it just sticks around a little bit longer. For boss, it does a little bit more continuous damage. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so equip-wise, so we talked a little bit about the general order, right? Weapon, secondary, emblem first, and you have those already legendary, and they have some useful lines on there as well. So that's what's important.
Yeah.
And then you have the Abzo. You were talking about flames there. There's definitely gains to be made there. Although for flames there are no events, so I'm always a little bit hesitant to like start spending on flames, especially if there's events nearby. I would always say prioritize on capitalizing on Star Force events and on cube sales if they exist. And then when everything is kind of at a pace where any kind of upgrade is really expensive, then you can like kill the time in between big events to be like, I'm going to work on those flames a little bit. Plus, you're going to get flames from bossing as well, and slowly that'll work its way up anyway. You don't want to get to the point where, you know, you get a bunch of flames and you can't really use them on anything because you've just spent like billions on flames, and now all the flames you get from bosses are kind of duds, you know? That's a little bit that's a little bit sad.
Definitely.
Yeah. So as much as you can that you're going to get out of the game anyway, use it that way. So that's what I would say. Especially so in the current situation, it would be like definitely don't spend anything because Star Force. And if you have a bunch of things sitting at 15, you want to save up money because if there's a 5, 10, 15, you want to be able to go hard and send that to 17. So I would definitely look into flames and look into the values of flames and where you can gain the most score and have that be part of. That's where I throw the flames on that I get from bosses, right? And you know, maybe if you have an itch that you need to scratch and you just want to spend a little bit, then you can probably comparatively gain a lot from just throwing some flames on some items, most likely. But other than that, I would just like save for events, I would say.
Yeah, I watch your videos explaining flames, so I have the knowledge of that. Anyway.
And you know where the calculator is and everything, so you can double check. So that's so once you get that value, that's what you compare to the progression grid, right? So here you have the flame scores for items without advantage, and then for the ones with advantage. And so without advantage is stuff like the superior and stuff like the Sweetwater stuff, right? That's why those flames are so bad. That's where you're like, okay, I can probably make a lot of gains. Not necessarily, right? Because the average outcome might be very low. So you always compare to what is like a reasonable outcome and what is a reasonable score to get to. And that's how you determine what is the potential for growth for the specific item. So your potential growth on the Abzo stuff is going to be way higher, right? Because like your, is it your shoe? Like your shoe's at 40. It's not very difficult at all to get like 85 flame score or something on a shoe to like double this versus your, what else were you talking about? The earring or something, right? Yeah, that like one has three attack, which in your current situation would be like 12. Like the flame score you'd be looking for is maybe like 24. So there's like 12 stat to gain there. So they're both at like 50% of where you would want them, but that 50% represents a whole lot more gains on the shoes for the same kind of investment probably, right? Yeah. So that's why Absolab, if it does come to flaming, has a way higher priority than superior stuff.
Okay. And when I get I'm 2 days away from Sup Ring. Do I immediately go for like damage on that? Like I'll like cube it all the way to legendary, or just?
So do you still have the unique scroll? Can you still get that one for the current event?
Oh, I'm about to get it actually. I didn't even know. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so I would set that one aside for it. I think that's a good one.
Okay, that's definitely. Because I don't coin cap every day. I don't know if you can hear them.
Whenever you can, yeah, in between feedings and yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like the cubing general order, right? Like WC, and then I would go for accessories, try to get legendaries, trying to get mezzo and drop combination, so like 5 lines of mezzo, 4 line of drop. And that's because, especially with a class like this, and if you're mainly playing on this character, you don't have a farming character on the side, you just want to bring up those gains while you're training to such an extent where it feels really beneficial to train. Like, you'll see a bunch more nodes, that'll get your damage up, you'll see way more money, which means if an event comes around, you can capitalize on it. Right now, that's a little bit rough, right? Because you don't maybe want to go too hard on potentials at this point because of the 1+1 and the no boom room. What kind of money are you working with right now?
Well, once a week I usually get like with the 1 bill from MapleStory, and then each day I get what I just do the dailies, which is what I can't remember how much exactly it is. I think it's like 40 mil.
And Ursus?
And then Ursus, so it's like 140 mil every day.
So it's like almost 2 bill a week.
Yeah, and then sometimes, but rarely, I actually have time to sit there and I grind on my main, like the 2-hour totem, and with the mesode rate I have just on my inner ability right now, I get like maybe 200 mil for an hour, maybe.
And how much do you have in the bank right now for tomorrow, or like possibly for tomorrow, I guess?
For tomorrow, I have like 500 mil.
Yeah, because I would say, like, if you had a lot of money, I would say, like, go ham and get, like, all your stuff to 15. But considering if you have 500 mil, it's probably better to just...
When does the no boom room go away?
I think when the event goes away, right?
Because I get my MapleStory on the 3rd, or actually the 2nd. So I was planning on just going in no boom room with the 1 bill, like close to 2 bill when I get all my dailies collected and everything. So I was wondering, that's the day I was gonna go, right when I get my MapleStory, and probably push my most likely I'm push the ones that I have already super close to, like my helm. It just feels left out because all the other CRA is 15 and it's just 12. So is there like, am I pushing my absolute to 15 before I push my superior necklaces, or?
Yeah, well, comparatively, like, the higher the level or the bigger the risk for, like, booming the item, you can make an argument kind of for the other stuff in other ways. Like, if you have a lot of money now, I would just, like, push it all to 15, and that's, like, kind of brain dead. The glove is probably higher priority because glove gets more attack even if you just from star forcing, and also it's an abso, so that means that from 15 to 17, once that comes around, you'll get comparatively the biggest gains there. But it'll also mean that it's probably the most expensive one to get to 15, of course. Yeah, when it comes to like backups and everything, like a 30% off event would be like 1+1 plus no boom is like the ideal situation. But if you don't have the money right now, then there's not much you can do at that point. Yeah, in terms of order, yeah, I would say probably the glove, and then. So for the hat, the weird thing is for the hat is that it's usually fine to just do it on 30% off because you typically don't safeguard anyway because you're going to be killing CRA a bunch and you'll have backup anyway. So it's not that bad. So for the hat, you could just wait for like a 30% off. Because it's no boom, it's going to be more important to do stuff that is already like unique or higher, and stuff that you definitely don't want to get backups of, or it's going to take forever to get backups of. So it would be, yeah, superior and the Abzo would be like roughly equal there, I guess.
So that 1+1, and if I read correctly, it was only 1+1 up to 10.
Yeah.
And I heard you say 12. Is that maybe just a mistake?
Yeah. Well, so if you succeed at 10, it goes up to 12 still, but at 11 it doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
So you go like 10 to 12, and then you'll fail, and then go back to 12, and that's gonna happen a bunch of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is the 31st, if I remember.
Yeah, that's tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, pretty much. I think we went over everything, honestly.
Yeah, for the accessories, just you want to find that full set, right? But like one piece at a time. Just get to mezzo or drop. If it has strength with it, that's great. But like first pass is just try to get mezzo or drop. If it's already unique, I would prioritize those, right? Because they're the closest, so that they're the quickest to bringing you a return on investment. And then yeah, for like CRA, you can keep that epic for like a long time. Even at the Ebzo, you can probably keep epic for a long time. You're mostly going to be focusing on Star Force for those, and potential wise on the accessories first.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think the extra boost nodes, rearranging the hypers for CPAP, I have a video that I made. I don't know if you saw that one from my Adele's point of view, where I talk through the whole. Basically, I look at my own run and I like, pause it and look at the situation, and I'm like, okay, this is dangerous. This is where you want to stand. This is where you want to move. This is what you want to do in this stage of the fight. That kind of thing. So for CPAP specifically, that might help you a lot. Gotten good feedback on those videos. Helped a lot of people to kill the boss. For Lotus, the main thing is for the laser, you can do the back step, right? What is it? Other float? No, the flutter thing, feather step.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can do that one through the laser, so that's a good one to learn the timing for.
Yeah, I'll watch this CPAP video. Because that's gonna be, because I need to do CPAP because I want that.
Yeah, Pet Mark could take forever, but the crystal is also worth so much money.
Yeah.
And if you could do CPAP, then you can definitely do a catchy as well. Has got a long, like, annoying pre-quest, but that one is like simpler. He's, I think, on the same level of annoying, but not nearly as punishing and not nearly as lethal. And also big crystal. Just CPAP and catchy together is like 150 mil a week in the two crystals.
I think that's why I want a boss so much, is because there's a lot more money.
If you could do it quickly, yeah, it's like way more efficient than grinding at some point. But then once you get to the point where if you can reliably grind and you have your accessories and everything on point, then it's going to be like, well, if there's a little bit of risk in the boss and I don't get to drop anyway, then I might as well just grind, because then I get the EXP and all the money guaranteed. It'll kind of depend on what stage of the game you're in. Yeah, no, flames look pretty decent on the CRA stuff. Yeah, like definitely the Abzo flames, like you said, you can definitely make gains, but I wouldn't focus on those right now. That'll come with time. And yeah, do try to get enough IED from other sources so that you can re-roll your emblem. You want to free your emblem of the IED, especially since you already have a line on the secondary, and that's 2 lines. So that secondary isn't going to be touched for a while. So depending on what your weapon ends up getting once you get your weapon. One major point though, if you do get your weapon, you do want to prioritize flame on your weapon, because it can get weapon attack, right? And that's a huge bonus. So definitely, if you're going to spend on anything, it would be like weapon is most important, and then the second most important things would be things that you want to transpose, so like a Papulatus Mark or a Dominator Pendant. But I wouldn't worry about the transposing thing too much, unless, like, until everything is 17 star and most things, or if not all things, are already legendary, and you're switching completely into the boss accessory set and Sweetwater accessories at everything 17. Until you get to that point, don't worry about like transposing and stuff. Like, again, you can use flames if you get them, but I wouldn't like hardcore invest and start pumping money into them.
Yeah.
But yeah, weapon flame is the exception there, because it's just, well, if you play around with the flame score calculator a little bit, like if you get a weapon attack high tier on an Adele, it could be like 80 weapon attack or some shit, which is like 4 Absolabs flames in one, so it's like comparatively that's huge, a huge buff. But yeah, other than that, looks pretty clean. The main reason I go for accessories from like epic and then go straight up to the legendary is because you don't lose damage there, right? Because you're going from like 6% damage to probably 6 or 9% damage, so you don't go down in kill speed. If you go to unique first and you get used to like having 15%, and then you go to legendary, you might lose a bunch of strength, and then it'll feel bad because you're getting weaker. So that's why I tend to make that big jump there. But then you supplement your damage by getting the correct equip sets, and getting your nodes leveled up, and getting with the 2 sets, and getting your arcane symbols leveled up, and getting the final damage there. As long as you're WSE and you're working on nodes and nodes and symbols, then that's your baseline damage for mobbing, and then no other damage should be coming from your accessories anyway. It'll be just like a little bit of surplus. That's why I think that's the good way to do it.
Okay, yeah, I get my suffering I think tomorrow actually, and then I just start looking for ID. And if my ID comes from Legion, so when
familiars, hopefully, right? If you can get some from familiars, that would be great.
So when I get 4K, how many bars of Legion do I unlock? It's like 2 extras?
2 extra, yeah. Yeah, so you have 7, 8, and 9, so you can go into 24%, I think. No, 7, 8. No, it's 8, 9, 8, 9, and 10, right? Wait, 8, 9, 10? No. Wait, isn't... Oh, 7, 8, 9, right? So 22%. 7, 8, 9. That's not 22. That's 24. Wait. That's 24.
7, 8, 9?
24%? Wait, how do you get to 40? Wait, my brain's not firing on all cylinders right now. What is the first outside line? That's 7, right? Isn't it? Or is it 6? 6, 7, 8. It's 6, 7, 8, yeah. Because then you're at 21, and then 9 brings you to 30, and 10 brings you to 40, yeah. Yeah, so you could go up to 21% with that. So if you have one familiar and a 21%, and maybe, you know, and maybe at that point you're like, okay, then I can redo the hyperstats, and I can still get over 90 without the, or like close to 90 or a little bit over 90 with the emblem ID gone, then you can fully reroll that without feeling anything. And then the superior is going to come in, and if that takes you too high again, then you just take a little bit away again from the sources you just added, you know? And if you get an extra familiar, then that means you can just move the ID in the grid and move it back to boss damage. Because that's the flexible one. You want to move the flexible ones, or you want to keep the robust ones and keep the expensive ones where they are.
I think we went over everything actually, and I liked what I learned. Definitely gotta check out that CPAP video.
Yep, that's gonna that's just gotta be a bunch of trial and error, because nobody likes that one particularly. It's just you just look at the mechanics and you just try to improve with every run, and after a while it'll be better. But yeah, definitely rely on the iframe. Use practice with the ether guard so you can look at how long the iframe is and everything. Go into practice mode a bunch of times, because I think that's practice mode, right? So you can just hump around a little bit. As long as you have one buff freezer, it doesn't cost you as much. And in panic mode, you can use the iframe from Infinity Blade, and then if you do that, you probably want to use that to go into some kind of burst, so you can commit as much of the Infinity Blade as damage as possible, and not have to like hop around and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, positioning is going to be a big thing. Yeah.
I don't think there's one last thing I wanted to go over is my inner ability. I got the 20% missile. I know how to lock that, but like the rest of them, am I waiting for an event, or I just reroll them whenever I feel like it?
Yeah, this is probably something I would do also after like everything is 17, you're kind of like more settled and your income is a lot more. And then I would look when it's like around events, I would start looking at, okay, do I want to commit? Because you're probably going to want to spend first on circulators to try to roll something good on circulators. And then if you get something good there, then you want to roll your honor to try to lock in the top line. But you need to circulate like a good line on second or third first.
Yeah, I got Meso's 20% on my first line, so I was like...
I would keep that for quite a while, like probably until you're like 245 or even above that.
Okay.
Because you don't need that damage from the inner ability. That's just like a nice extra, but you don't need it as Adele. So you have the luxury of staying into Mesoptane longer and just getting to the finish line faster, because you can kind of, pass people by, kind of.
Alright, and I think that was everything we went over.
Yeah, I think so too. Went over a bunch of things. If you have like follow-up questions, of course, you can always check out the commands, and you can ask in the chat. If I see it, I'll answer. But we have a bunch of very helpful people in the chat who are always willing to point you in the right direction. Or if you have like a follow-up question for a command, that's always much easier. You can be like, oh, he said this in this situation. Like, where does that come from? That's always much easier to answer than just like, how do familiars work? Because that's so broad. So yeah, definitely check out the commands, and if you have follow-up questions, I'll be here to answer them. Okay,
and I just watched you play Tetris with that Legion board, and it was like pretty cool.
Yeah, I move that one around a lot, so it's like it's a whole shape that I move between boss and bonus experience for training or bossing. That's the only one I move. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I gotta go.
To the kids. Yeah. Good luck with the kids, and good luck with everything, and we'll see you around.
Hey, bye.
All right. Bye. All right, cool. Another clean, crisp. Ooh, yes, it was a good call. Thank you, Discord. Good session, I think. But yeah, I have to go do Varicella, so I'll wrap it up really quickly. Again, we are almost at the end of November, so before the next video, I will have drawn my 2 winners for November. So make sure, or maybe we'll do one more tomorrow, maybe. But make sure that you leave a comment if you would like to win one of these sessions as well. If you don't want to wait for a draw or you don't want to win for luck, you can always contact me for one of these sessions. There's a link in the description on how you can go about that. I do paid sessions for people for donations, and I do them for channel points for people who are subscribers in my Twitch chat. Speaking of which, in my Twitch chat is also where all the resources are and all the commands are that we just talked about. We only saw 3 or 4 of them here. I have almost 200 of them with information for pretty much every single topic in MapleStory. I keep them up to date with the current meta, so if there's anything that you thought you knew 3 years ago, it's always a good idea to just double check, see if nothing has changed, because the balance of something within the game can change even if the internal mechanics of the thing has not changed. So it's always good to just double check, or maybe ask in the chat and be like, hey, is this still the same thing? Is this still a thing? Do I still do this? And someone in chat will always let you know, like, yeah, that's the same, or no, that's different now. You should check the command to get updated information. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have learned something. You know, maybe there's something. I always learn something as well from these, so that's always good. But maybe hopefully there's 1 or 2 things. I saw someone in chat saying I didn't know about the killing Zakum too quickly. That's actually a huge thing on lower level characters. If you attack too quickly, you don't get the arm EXP, and that's where most of the EXP is. So make sure that you don't sell your character short, because if you're feeling like you're not leveling quickly enough, that's probably true, because you should be getting still a decent amount of XP, even all the way up to 140. Past 140, I wouldn't spend my time doing Sakuma or anything like that. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here, and check the links in the description for more info. And catch me live on Twitch, because I stream there every day, and love to see you jump in. So I'll see you around. Bye.